Atmanam pratipadyate sahankarasya dravyasya yovasthanam anugraha evam. Thus pratyavam rushya, after understanding, asau, that person, atmanam, his self, pratipadyate, realizes, sahankarasya, accepted under false ego, dravyasya, of the situation, ya, who, avasthanam, resting place, anugraha, the manifester. Okay, anybody want to give it a try? Maybe we'll start from the Prabhujis and then one or two each, and maybe Vaishnavis. Evam pratyavam rushyasa Atmanam pratipadyate sahankarasya dravyas yovasthanam anugraha. So, evam pratyavam rashyasa Atmanam pratipadyate sahankarasya dravyasya yovasthanam anugraha. Vaishnavis. Evam pratyam rashyasa Atmanam pratipadyate sahankarasya dhavyasya yovasthanam anugraha. Evam pratyavam rashyasa Atmanam prapadyate sahankarasya dravyasya yovasthanam anugraha. Okay. Translation by Srila Prabhupada Ki. When by mature understanding one can realize his individuality, then the situation he accepts under false ego becomes manifest to him. Okay, do you want to just maybe repeat the translation? When by mature understanding one can realize his individuality, then the situation he accepts under false ego becomes manifest to him. Okay, when you come to my Bhagavatam class, I think you already expect some kind of, by now I think you're going to expect some kind of philosophy and theology and, But what I wanted to do today is mix it up with some practicality also. Because false ego is a very strong topic. And if we don't relate with our practical situations every day, how are we going to deal with our lives, and how are we going to deal with our relationships in devotees' lives and in family lives, in lives, in relationships with the world in general as general. So I just wanted to mix both a little bit, because I don't want it to go away, oh God, high steep philosophy. So I give you a little introduction of what the translation, what Prabhupada is meaning in translation from contemporary perspective. Yeah, contemporary in the sense what's going on in this world. So these kinds of experience that where when you come to maturity in yoga and you start to understand and you start to see it is going to, it's bound to happen when you're chanting Hare Krishna sincerely, and when you go through our philosophies, when you go through the bhakti life, it is bound to happen. We will go through the gradual stages of our bhakti life and we will mature. It is bound to happen. So, Kshipram bhavati dharmatma, shashva shanti nigacchati, kauntaya pratijanihi, name bhakta pranishati. So we will eventually mature and it will happen. It may for some of us it could be gradual, slow. For some of us like a mercury rise, but it will happen. So what Prabhupada is trying to say in the Prabhupada is translating from the shloka. In academic terms, it's called ontological surprise. Has anybody ever heard of this word before? It's called ontological surprise. So I'll break it down for you and I'll clarify what it means. Ontology means a nature of our existence. The nature of existence in the sense that the material nature we live. Obviously the material bodies are different ontology. You can touch and you can feel. You can tell it's gross matter. But mind is a different ontology where you can't actually feel or you can touch, but you can sense and you can, maybe not like you hit the mic, but you can feel and you can sense the thought. So these are called ontology, like ontological status, nature of existences. So ontological surprise is what happens when you're maturing in your yoga life, in your bhakti yoga life. What happens is there comes a point where you see yourself as a conscious entity, as Atma. And you see others on this planet, others in this room, you'll start to see them as Atmas, as a conscious entity. You'll stop seeing them as bodies, because that's the whole basic foundation of Vedic literature. We have to start seeing ourselves as Atma, and perhaps maybe when we go in front of the mirror, it's not mirror, mirror on the wall, who's fairest of the all. Spieglein an der Wand. It comes from German. So it's not like that anymore, because you see yourself as Atma and you see others as Atmas. And you see every living entity as an Atma. So that's the basic foundation of Sankhya philosophy. We have to come to an understanding of Atma. So what happens is once you mature, it's as if like the Atma pops out and looks at your current persona, your body, your mind, and our current material influenced persona. The Atma pops out and kind of sees, who is this body that I'm carrying? Who is this body that I'm seeing through? Who is this body I'm working through? There comes a moment and you actually see that. You're like, I'm a conscious entity. Who is this? For example, I'm called Varun in my social life. Who is this Varun? Or who is this person that I'm seeing through all the time? And I can confirm this by Bhagavad Gita verse in 5th chapter. Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyeta tattvavet. Pashyan shunvan spashan jigran ashnan gachan swapan shwasan. Pralapan visrijan grinyan unmishan nimishan api. Indriyan indriyarteshu vartanta iti dharayan. Krishna says in chapter 5, the naiva kinchi karomiti, once a mature, yukto manyeta tattvavet. Tattvavet. Once you come to tattva understanding, once you come to the mature understanding, Krishna says the Atma starts seeing the body, vartante iti dharayan. The indriyas and my body is always in contact with the sense objects, but I am separate from that body. So it's not something I made up. Ontological surprise is not something I made up. Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita. You ontologically get surprised, like, what is this material existence? What is my body doing here? Why am I seeing through this body? Why do I understand from this body? But I guarantee you, I promise you, we don't have to continue this. We can see ourselves as Atma. We can see others as Atmas. We can start relating on that level platform. And then Bhakti develops from there. Brahma bhuta prasannatma na sochati na kankshati. Sama sarveshu bhuteshu. Can anybody feel the rest? Fantastic. So that's where once you come to this Atma platform, this Brahma Bhuta platform, and you're actually content with your position as Atma, you're actually content with identifying others as Atmas, then the bhakti starts to develop from there. That's a platform. Otherwise, there is a big risk that it could just become self-righteous fanaticism. You understand? Self-righteousness. Like as soon as someone comes into religious, like they become self-righteous. Like I'm on my way to heaven. Nobody can stop me now. The doors of heaven are open now. I'm the self-righteous. So there is a risk of us becoming self-righteous if we don't understand ourselves as Atmas and see others as Atmas. Sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param. Then the bhakti grows from there. So this is called ontological surprise, where you start to get surprised. Like, who is this Varun? Who is this? Why am I seeing through this? Why do I have to think like him all the time? Maybe I can actually start acting like Atma. When you start doing that, you don't have to wait until you die to go to the spiritual world. You're actually already in the spiritual world. You don't have to wait to die, because there is a myth in religious organizations that you have to die to get salvation, or you have to die and then he went to heaven, or he died and he met his ancestors. You don't have to do. When you act like an Atma, and sama sarveshu bhuteshu sarva bhuta hite rata, when you're acting of the welfare for all Atmas under the service of guidance, under service of Krishna and guidance of our predecessors, we are already in the spiritual world. Death is just something that just happens. It's just a phase, like Dadichi Muni, right? I gave that example before. Dadichi Muni, Vritrasura. They go and ask Dadichi Muni, can you give me your bones? Because I want to build a Vajra weapon. Dadichi says, yeah, sure, take my body. First he tests Indra, and then after he walks away, and then he's like, oh, where's my body? Because he's just going to his next service. So this ontological surprise kind of kicks in. And then once this ontological surprise kicks and you see yourself as Atma, you detach that bodies and senses are acting on their own. They're mixing with sense objects. But I am not actually a doer. I'm actually an Atma. Once you see that platform, once you relate to others as Atmas, then the bhakti beautifully just naturally flows. The service just automatically flows. It also helps in devotee relationships, because you're relating others with as Atma. It also helps in our worldly life and our jobs. Because when you're sitting in job, and when you have other staff, other colleagues, and you're having these little tussles and tiffs and all, you just take a little deep breath and see as Atmas, all of a sudden you see new light, new avenues to deal with things. That never happened before. Because usually we just want to go head to head with the problem. In families, that's what we want to do. Like head to, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right. Same happens in the work culture. I was right, I was supposed to do, I had this project in my hands. I was giving it a good ending. They put a spanner in the wheel. So what happens is, you see, when you start seeing like others as Atmas, and you see the contributions and the tiffs and tussles are coming from a false ego platform where we have accepted ourselves as a body, mind, and this current intelligence. Then when we see things as they are, then in our situations in our family lives, in our situations in our work lives, in our situations in our devotee relationships, you start to see new lights coming through. You all of you see an avenue you never saw before. Oh my God, I could have dealt this way. I don't have to fall into the ply of my false ego. I don't have to surrender to my ahankar. So that's the unique contribution of Sankhya. Now you might say, wait a minute. This chapter says understanding material nature, Radhika Prasad Prabhu. So why are you making this all so psychological? Wait a minute. Look at did you read the title of chapter, this chapter, Radhika Prasad? It says understanding the material nature. Why are you getting all Bhagavad Gita on me and psychological on me? Right? I can answer that. Because that's the unique, holistic contribution of the Vedic literature. That's the unique, holistic contribution of Bhagavatam. That when we talk about material nature, Bhagavatam and Sankhya are including our psychological natures. Not just the trees and animals and the rivers and the mountains and the sounds and the ether and the fire and the sparks and the water and the smells and the earth. Not just that. Our psychological nature, the study of our psychological nature is included in the study of material nature. That's the unique, holistic contribution of Srimad Bhagavatam and the Vedic literatures. When you exclude the study of your psychology, when we exclude not paying attention to our psychologies, when we stop paying attention to other people's psychologies and let them relate to us, the problem, the risk that we are running is that it's half-baked. It becomes half-baked. And we start to struggle a lot. So that's the contribution of Sankhya philosophy. It doesn't only just give us a good explanation and examination of the material nature, but it also gives a good peep, a solid, good peep into our own psychologies, into our own philosophies. Or you may say, Radhika Prasad, too much philosophy. We are not interested in philosophy. I'll tell you, I'll give you an interest. Philosophy is like psychology. Even if you don't want to understand that, you have one. You may say, I don't want to study psychology, but you have a psychology. In the same way, we may think, okay, I don't want to jnana, oh God, too much. But if we don't understand our psychology, if you don't understand our philosophy, but we have one. So at some stage, we're going to have to come to terms with it. And we have to somehow transform this into a life of bhakti with a higher taste. Vishaya vinivartante nirarasya dehina. So far so good? Is that going to add some value in your bhakti life, understanding this? Sankhya is not just a study of material nature, it's a holistic inclusive of our psychology. Psychology includes ahankar, psychology includes mana. Mana is the faculty of our ahankar, current mana is a faculty, it's an emotional faculty that is always trying to fulfill our current material ego's desires. If you don't understand these subtle differences, what is mana doing? What is the mind doing? It's just an emotional faculty that's trying constantly to fulfill our ego's desires. And we can bring our mind very friendly into our journey. When you do that, your life will never be the same. Your life will never be the same once you do that. So you have to somehow try to bring the mana, somehow trying to be the mind very friendly into the journey of your bhakti life. Gradually, friendly, we have to bring it on our journey. Do you think it's going to help in your bhakti life a little bit? Yeah? Understanding how Sankhya works? Okay. So, well, I better read Prabhupada's purport, otherwise you're going to go and ask for refunds. And we don't do refunds in Hare Krishna. You should know that before coming to the Hare Krishna lectures. So, that was a joke. I'm a volunteer. It was meant to be a joke, okay? The Mayavadi philosopher's position is that at the ultimate issue, the individual is lost. Everything becomes one, and there is no distinction between the knower, the knowable, and the knowledge. But by minute analysis, we can see that this is not correct. Individuality is never lost. Even when one thinks that the three different principles, namely the knower, the knowable, and the knowledge, are amalgamated or merged into one, the very concept that three merge into one is another form of knowledge. And since the perceiver of the knowledge still exists, how can one say that the knower, the knowledge, and the knowable have become one? The individual soul who is perceiving this knowledge still remains as an individual, both in material existence and spiritual existence. The individuality continues. The only difference is in the quality of the identity. In material identity, the false ego acts, and because of false identification, one takes things to be different from what they actually are. That is the basic principles of conditional life. Similarly, when the false ego is purified, one takes everything in the right perspective. This is the state of liberation. Okay, I just want to stop there for a little minute, because that was a lot Prabhupada said. If I'm using any terms that you don't understand or you never heard before, please stop me, and I don't have no problem if you stop me and just say, repeat that, Radhika Prasad. So, when we understand Prabhupada's statements in his purports, it's extremely important to understand. This in academics is called hermeneutics. Anybody heard of this word before? Hermeneutics? Hermeneutics is anybody here? You did? Very good. Okay. Hermeneutics is a science of interpretation, the rules of principles around interpreting the scriptures. Yeah. So when we are reading Prabhupada's statements, it's very important that we don't just read it in isolation of that particular purport. It's very important to see Prabhupada's purpose in the light of all of his scripture. Because Prabhupada's statement, it's like Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. The single purport always has to be seen on the light of everything else Prabhupada has written. We can't just say, Prabhupada said about this, about the moon, and shebang, that's it. Prabhupada said about this, about the woman, shebang, that's it. No, we have to see Prabhupada's statements in the light of all the scriptures and all his life. And that's hermeneutics. So when Prabhupada is saying Mayavadi, we usually, mostly, at least in my circles, the immediate assumption is he's taking a hit at Shankaracharya. Sometimes, not all the time. So this Mayavadi, when Prabhupada is taking a shot at Mayavadi philosophers, Prabhupada is taking a shot at everybody, Western and Eastern, who don't make distinctions between Atma, Jiva, God, Ishvara, Prakriti, nature. So I'll repeat it again. When Prabhupada takes a shot at the Mayavadi philosopher statements, he's not taking just a shot at Shankaracharya all the time. He's taking a shot at everybody, every scholar who don't make distinctions between Atma, Paramatma, God, and nature. It's not necessarily just with Adi Shankaracharya all the time. So we have to understand that. I give you an example. I'll give you two examples. One example I'll give you from the West, and one I'll give you from a Western scholar, and the other I'll give you an example from an Eastern scholar. Who do you want me to start with first? Western or Eastern? Western? Okay. So, there's this very famous atheist. His name is Tom Jump. And there's another called Matt Dillahunty. They're currently going with full swords around the whole planet. And Hare Krishnas, we like to go. I work in a Bhaktivedanta Institute, BI. It's called BI. It was started by Sataputta Prabhu and Sarup Damodar, the scholars. And I work there. So what we do sometimes, and we have to go and debate with these people, these atheists in the academic world. And my mentor, Akhanditi Prabhu, was doing a little debate with Tom Jump. And Akhanditi Prabhu asked him, like after an hour's discussion, there is a little problem with what you're saying, Mr. Tom Jump, Mr. Atheist. Because what you're doing, you're focusing so much on the physics of this world, but you haven't addressed yourself as an Atma, as an observer. Gnanam, Gneyam, Parignata. Just as Krishna is, Prabhupada is saying, knower, knowable, and the knowledge. Gnanam, Gneyam, Parignata, Trivida, Karma Chodana. Karanam, Karma, Karteti, Trivida, Karma, Sangraha. 18th chapter. Yeah? 17th verse. So he said, wait, Mr. Tomjam, you are not making a distinction and you're not focusing on the Atma, consciousness, observer. All your talk is about the physical world. Do you want to hear a very shocking statement? You know what he said? He said, what do you mean observer? Isn't this the whole thing same? The observation and the observer and the object of observation, aren't they whole one same thing? What do you mean observer? For the first time he heard this. And his lights went out. And he asked Akhanditi, where do you come from? He said, we come from a tradition called Sankhya. We come from a Vedic tradition, Vedanta tradition. And currently it goes around as Hare Krishnas. And we make a very, very important distinction that the observer, the seer, is different from the observation and the object of observer. His lights went out. He couldn't believe it. I could see, like his lips were dry. And he was like, I never thought about this. Yes, the observer and the observation and the object of observation are three different things. And he said, can you prove it? And I was so proud of the way it was done. I participate in this. So I was so, as an observer, and I go back and provide my comments and my observations. So I was so proud. He said, I'll give you an example. Say if you just had an experience, you just had a prasad, Mahaprasad or Mahaprasad, right? Oh, Mahaprasad is spiritual, so no, I don't want to take that. Okay, let's take a movie. Yeah, you just watched a movie. There's three things happening there. There's a seer, there's a movie, and there's actually the act of observation, right? There's three things. The movie has finished. The experience has finished. The object of experience has finished. The time has passed. But you as an observer are still here. If they were the same thing, you shouldn't be still existing here, isn't it? Should all be disappeared along with the experience, isn't it? But you're still here through the stages of your life. Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yavanam jara. You have a past experience, you have a present experience, you have various stages of past experiences, but as an observer, you're still the same. Isn't that the first teaching that Krishna gives? Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yavanam jara. So you are still here. And it's like, bingo. I never thought about that. Yeah. So please understand, we have to take care of our Atmas. We have to take care of that seer. That's what Prabhupada means when Prabhupada is talking about Mayavadi philosophers. He's not taking a shot at Adi Shankara all the time. It's taking about this mentality where they don't make distinctions. Do you understand? Is it too much philosophy? Way too much? Or is it okay? Am I going? You can stop and you can just say, can you go through this again? Or have I completely lost you guys? You okay? How are you feeling, Ian? You okay? Okay. If Mataji is okay, Matajis have given permission, then I'm just going to proceed. So that's what Pandavas always did. If Draupadi, if the female power gave the direction, they'd just go with that. So anyway, so we have to make this distinction. He's not just taking a shot at Mayavadi means all the time Shankara or someone. Yeah, that's one Western example I've given you, where one of the prominent, he is on that debates. He wants to take the whole world. He's a disciple of Sean Carroll, the physicist, and he doesn't even know that there is a difference between a seer and the experience and the object of experience. That's Mayavadi. You don't make the distinction, which is the reason you say Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatarine. Nirvishesha, people who are not making any distinctions. Yeah? Okay, now I'll go to the eastern side. You want me to give eastern example? In the eastern example, I don't want to take the name of this person because it might get into controversy, and these kind of classes are going on like YouTubes and all that, so I won't take his name. But he's one of the, I'll just say SG and leave it at that, okay? Initials SG, and you already got the point. Okay. So it was very interesting, and beautiful classes, right? Fantastic philosophy, like light he can put into the philosophies of Vedanta. I'm not pretty sure if he's actually read Vedanta. I'm not pretty sure he's actually read Gita. In one of the lectures, he actually admitted he never read Gita. And he's passing as one of the greatest Indian gurus now. He is like one of the greatest Indian gurus, and he actually admitted, it's on the YouTube, that he's never read Gita. And he actually goes around telling people that Krishna is not actually a god. And he's one of the major gurus now in India. He's flying around everywhere in the world. Singapore, Malaysia, Los Angeles, everywhere. And he's never read Bhagavad Gita, and he says Krishna is not God. And I was saying, wait a minute, what is going on here? You're a guru, mate. What are you doing? So, but beautiful transformational lectures people find, and so, I call a spade, some of them are good. But there is no distinction between an Atma and God. Ishvara, Jiva, two separate things. There's no distinction. And I was sitting there thinking, what? And he even gives I've gone through Mahabharata with a fine-tooth comb. And he's sitting on this 20,000 people podium, 20,000 people in this arena, maybe 10-20,000 pandal. And he's telling apparently some night in the middle of Kurukshetra, Krishna goes to Arjuna and tells Arjuna that Karna is such a big fighter, he can kill you anytime. In fact, Karna is so big, he can even kill me. So Krishna is not actually a god. And I'm thinking, which verse is this in Mahabharata? Could you please quote? Which is the verse that I missed completely after going through 56 I went through Bhagavad Gita 56 times. I've never come across a verse where Krishna said, I'm not God. I've went through whole Mahabharata maybe, 3 or 4 times. I've never come across a verse where Krishna said Karna that I'm not God and Karna can kill me anytime. Where is this verse? Can you please show me, did I miss something in Bhagavad Gita? Did I miss something in Mahabharata? That Krishna says that I'm not God? Or am I reading some other versions of Bhagavad Gita? What is going on? Do you see that on one hand we have these Western philosophers who don't make a distinction between the observer, the seer, and the experience and the object of experience. And we have these big SGs. Yeah, you will know what it means very soon anyway. I've said it a few times. So this SG, the big guru going around, and he hasn't read Bhagavad Gita, and he's telling people around the whole world, traveling, that Krishna is not God. Then, who is God? Can the real God stand up, please? So that's what Prabhupada means. Prabhupada, when we're talking about, Prabhupada is taking a shot at Mayavadi philosophy. Prabhupada is taking a shot at the mentality. Prabhupada is not just taking a shot at one person or one hit. He's taking about this mentality where we don't make distinctions. And what are the main three distinctions? Jiva, Ishvara, Prakriti. Mataji, someone please get Mataji a Mahaprasad straight after this class. Please. Someone please give her a big Mahaprasad garland and some Mahaprasad. Fantastic. So 3, we don't make distinctions between the seer, the observation, and the object of sense object. Same with the Eastern people. They're not making distinctions that Krishna is actually a God and you're Atma. There is no, don't let your ego to take a clash when you have to accept Krishna as God. Don't need to. You know why? Because Krishna is always working for your benefit. He's always thinking, scheming, strategizing. This is his 24/7 job. He's always worried and anxious how to take you back to him. So why an ego clash if he is God? There's no need for an ego clash. Be completely happy, content, and convinced and satisfied that he is God and we are Jiva. Please trust me. There's no need for an ego clash. How are we going so far? Happy? Okay, I'm seeing some nods. So, okay, I'll read the rest of the purport. Yeah? Because, you think, Radhika Prasad, nice class. You didn't take your pill. It is stated in the Ishopanishad that everything belongs to the Lord. Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. Everything exists on the energy of the Supreme Lord. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. 9.4 and 9.5. Matsthani sarvabhutani nachaham tesva avastita. Yeah, 9.4 and 9.5. That's what Prabhupada is trying to refer. It is stated in Ishopanishad, everything belongs to the Lord. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. Matsthani sarvabhutani nachaham tesva avastita. Nacha matstani bhutani pashyame yogamaishwaram. Yeah? So, everything exists on the energy of the Supreme Lord. You pashyame yogamaishwaram. Yeah? Matstani sarvabhutani nachaham tesva avastita. Nacha matstani bhutani pashyame yogamaishwaram. They exist in me, but they don't exist in me. I'm everywhere, but I'm not everywhere. Tan nejati, tan nejati. Taddure, tadvantike, Ishavasya, Ishopanishad. Tadantarasya sarvasya. So it's all this paradoxical language. So he's everywhere, but he's not there. It makes sense. Okay? I can't do it in 1 hour. I need maybe a whole series to gradually bring to the Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. This is really Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. Yeah? Nachamatstani bhutani, pashyame yogamaishwaram, bhuta brunacha bhutascha, mamatma bhuta bhavana, pashyame yogamaishwaram, I'm in there, I'm not in there. So these are all I can't do in 1 hour. Yeah? But hopefully at some stage, let's see if Krishna wills. So, That's what Prabhupada is referring to when he says Bhagavad Gita, because everything is produced of his energy and exists. Maya tatam idam sarvam jagadavyakta murtina. Yeah, these are all the same. Anyway, I don't want to go all Bhagavad Gita on you. Proceed with the purport. Yeah, because everything is produced on his energy and exists on his energy. The energy is not different from him, but still the Lord declares, "I am not there." When one clearly understands one's constitutional position, everything becomes manifest. False egoistic acceptance of things conditions one, whereas acceptance of things as they are makes one liberated. The example given in the previous verse is applicable here. Due to observation of one's identity in his money, when the money is lost, he thinks that he is also lost. But actually he is not identical with the money, nor does the money belongs to him. When the actual situation is revealed, he understands that the money does not belong to any individual person or a living entity, nor it is produced by a man. Ultimately, the wealth, the money, is the property of the Supreme Lord. There's no question of its being lost. As long as we falsely think I am the enjoyer or I am the Lord, this concept of life continues and one remains conditioned. As soon as this false ego is eliminated, one is liberated. As confirmed in Bhagavatam, situation in one's real constitutional position is called mukti or liberation. Mukti hitvan yatharupam swarupena. So, these are all references to other shlokas in Bhagavatam. Okay. Now you might say, someone may say, Prabhuji, you have all gone Bhagavad Gita on us. Meanwhile, in the real world, we have to deal with the real world. So can you stop going all Bhagavad Gita on us and Bhagavatam on us and come back to the real world? Yeah, and I think that's quite a valid question. The ahankar, the mana is always troubling us. Because why? Because mana is always trying to fulfill the desire of your ahankara, which has completely assumed you as this body. Right? So ahankara is always troubling. Ahankara is troubling us at work. Boss is troubling us. Things are changing at work. Things are changing at shopping. You didn't get that parking spot that you always wanted. As soon as you come, it's already taken. Things don't work when you go to the bank, when you go to the shopping mall. The checkout people were rude to you. Things are not going well. When you get your electricity bill, it doesn't make sense. Why does it always happen? Is it just me? You look at the electricity bill and think, did I really use that much? Why is it $1,400? So we are going through these problems. The boss is on our tails. The bills are coming fast. The shopping malls, the interest rates are going up. What about the real world? Yeah? So I'll give you an example. I'll give you a personal example how I try to deal with these things. And hopefully it's not my manufacturing. I've applied according to our predecessors, and fortunately it's working. I'm not there yet, but it works. So what happens is gradually when you keep doing, the only way you can bring your mind and ahankar and your real world problems into terms is consistently taking and engaging in our services. This sounds like, oh God, it sounds like a Hare Krishna lecture, but this is fact. When you see value in your service, when you start seeing the value you're adding to this world with your service, when you actually see a little transformation that you were bringing to this world in your own little sphere, okay, in our own little spheres, we are all not Mahabhagavatas yet. At least I don't feel like. If anybody here is, it's okay. But in our own spheres, when we see that we are actually adding value for the transformation of this world, when we're actually seeing our service is actually transforms a little bit, a drop every day in this world. When you see that, and when you see that consistently for a long time, what happens is you become very, very service focused. And when we become service focused, when you see, when am I going to get, you can't wait for your service. I can't wait for my Fridays. I can't wait for my Saturday because I got to go and do books. Like when it's like an itch in the palms, right? I want to go there, I want to knock those doors, I want to set up my stall. After a long time, when we start seeing the value that we are adding to this world, when we're seeing that this actually makes some sense, some transformation, bringing some light into this world, and when you're at it consistently for a persistent time, what happens is when problems like this come, the electricity bill bursts out, or the boss was on your tail and he gave you the bad news of your life. Yeah? And the first thing that comes to your mind is not the bad news. The first thing that comes to your mind is, because you practice it so long, is, where is my next Friday stall? I have to be in my shape in order to go to my next service on Friday and Saturday. When that becomes your main intention, your main focus on the mind, you then see these boss problems, you then see these work problems in its own light as they are. You don't let your ego, you don't let your emotions exaggerate the problem. But it happens gradually after some time. And then all of a sudden, a new light comes. The problem's still there. You all of a sudden, because you are so service focused and you see the value that it's adding to you and it's adding to the world, it's transforming you and it's transforming the world. And when you see this constantly, day in, day out, year in, year out, when you hear these bad news from the boss, when you hear your colleague is backbited behind you, when you didn't get the position that was you're waiting for 25 years, the project leader, the first thing that comes to your mind is that I have to be healthy physically and mentally because Friday and Saturday is going to be my service and I want to add a value to this world and to myself. And when that switches like that, when your mind starts triggering like that, you start to see that problem on its own light. It's not about is the problem big or it's not about the problem is small. It's the point is seeing it as it is rather than letting our emotions and mind exaggerating it. Because you are thinking about your service. Doesn't make sense? Do you think this will work? Yeah? Okay. So now let's move on to the next level of our life. Devotee relationships. Yeah? That like is the biggest spanner in the wheel of any religious movement, isn't it? Devotee relationships. We have problems, we can't get along, or someone else, screwed up my program or my project, or it was all going well until that Prabhuji, that Mataji posted something funny on the Facebook, or these is the problems, right? So what happens is there's a way you can deal with this. Mahatma Prabhu has like thousands and thousands and thousands of lectures on that. I've almost heard all of them. There may be 4 or 5 recent, but almost all of them. And some of you may already know, Mahatma Prabhu and I are like, he's my like kind of a Siksha Guru, and we almost talk every week. We go through these kind of things a lot. What happens is there's only so much you try without hurting other devotees. Yeah. Don't what the last thing we want to do, if it comes to a point where we just have to maintain a healthy distance until things clarify, until things clear, until we are clear, until they are clear, if we have to maintain some healthy distance without hurting and offending each other, it's okay. It's okay. There's no need to go like, I am right, I was right, I am right. I'm 100%, you may be right, I may be right. We are not always wrong. But the point is, this may not be the right situation to figure out and make a decision on who's right and who's wrong. Maybe it can be parked. Have you heard of this? In projects, in the work life, in projects, they call something, when you can't deal with a problem for some time, they say park it on the whiteboard. Anybody go to work here, projects, things like that? Yeah? They say park it on the board, right? Because we can't deal with this now. So it's nothing wrong with maintaining a healthy distance until we are clear, until things clear. It actually happens in my life all the time. Sometimes like just head to head going with egos, ahankar, right? That's what Prabhupada is talking about. You see ahankar as its own, as on its own, as it is. So we can try as much as we can, and there comes a point we don't have to prove yourself or myself right. We can just park it on the whiteboard and just continue, we can maintain a healthy distance. If that is a healthy distance, not isolating and alienating, but maintain a healthy distance. And I promise and guarantee there have been situations where I was just going like boom, 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 boom. And then you just park it, and after like 7, 8, 10 years, and then that devotee sees my point, I see that devotee, all of a sudden we meet on a Balram Purnima and we are paying dandavats to each other and hugging each other, saying, I didn't see your point at that time, but now I see. So there's nothing wrong to park until we grow in that maturity level. That's the epistemology of bhakti life. It's state specific. The realization comes based on our gradual improvement of our consciousness. So I gave 2 examples in practical life. One at a work life. Yeah? Once when we see the service, the value that service is adding to you, but the value that service is adding to the world, then we can kind of switch our mind and turn it over. Yeah, that one example. And you can actually do that. I try to do that. Sometimes I get like packages and redundancies, and one time my boss was wondering why I was not crying. He was crying and he said, why are you not crying? I said, because I have a book stall tomorrow. Oh, okay. So you're happy with the redundancy? Yeah, fine. Because I have a book stall tomorrow. I got to go and set up a few things. Is it okay? Are we done with this? Yeah, we're done with this. Can I have my packet? Yeah, I have a packet. Bye. See you later. So it is possible to do that, and all of a sudden you see new lights in your life. All of a sudden you see doors that you've never seen. All of a sudden you see avenues that Krishna presents them, and wow, it was right there. Yeah. And I gave an example in devotees, our devotee relationships, where park it. Don't have to prove I am right now. Just park it for some time. And we see ahankara for what it is. Same with families. Yeah. We have to see in the light of our services. We have to see what is my next service. When we see what is my next service, then the shift, there's a complete new shift. Is that helpful? Or yeah, is it good? Okay, now I'll give you one last ahankara example in our real world. Because I was thinking, like in the last few my Sankhya classes, I was driving home and I was thinking, am I going all Bhagavad Gita on them? Am I going all, Bhagavatam and, philosophical and, theological with all my, BI theology? I was just thinking, what about meanwhile in the real world, Radhika Prasad, there's the third platform of our daily lives, which is, so I've talked about work lives, I talked about family lives, I talked about devotee relationships. Now we have to talk about one of the most important, even though I'm picking it up as a last point, this is the most important point. Our relationship with the world. We cannot act like a self-righteous fanatic. When we are interacting with this world, there's two tendencies. People that have taken pravritti marg, they kind of just submit to the world. The risks, I'm saying, not everybody does that, but there is a risk. People that have taken pravritti marg, they just surrender to everything the world is bringing, because we are hopeless, right? What do we have, Prabhu? What power do I have? Come on. How can I beat Mayadevi? You got to be kidding me. And of course we can't beat Mayadevi, but Krishna helps you. And there is a Nivritti Marg, and the risk in Nivritti Marg is, I am a renunciate. Mayadevi can never touch me. So we have these two risks. The Pravritti Marg, people just go surrender. The Nivritti renunciate, like we are the renunciate. Look at me. So there's two risks in these two types of margas. So what happens in the world is there's a simple formula. We have to let the world relate to us. We cannot alienate the world with our jargons, with our religious jargons. We cannot alienate the world with our religious images. Images in the sense how we should look as in any religion has this problem. Like some people take beards as an image. Some people take, I don't know. There's so many religions, just take a pick. And you will see that what happens is they get lost just as a dinosaur got lost, because they don't see how to adapt to the world. They don't let... The dinosaurs have... I don't know if there were any, but if there were some dinosaurs, the reason they get extinct is because they don't know how to... Usually any species gets lost is because they don't figure out how to adopt to the current circumstances. In the same way, a religious movement can get lost if we don't understand how to adopt to the current circumstances, current world, the contemporary. Will vanish just like a dinosaur got extinct. So when we are interacting with the world, it's very important we have to let them relate to us. We have to connect to us on their level. We cannot act, religious institutions cannot all become self-righteous angels. I'm on my way to the heaven. What are you, I'm on my way to Brajalok Vrindavan. And all these karmis, the lovely word that we use to illustrate the world, the karmis and the kalis and the mayas. And no, please don't get us all jargoned on. Don't put them in these boxes. These karmis and the mayas and this and that. Let the world relate to us. Let us relate to this world. It's extremely important. Otherwise, how are we going to look at this book? This is the most loveliest scientific book. This is the most loveliest psychological book. This is the most loveliest relationship book. Every relationship. This has got so much to offer. But if we become self-righteous angels, and we under an impression, and if the world cannot relate to us, what good is this Bhagavatam going to do to this world? There is spiritual science, but who is going to be the spiritual scientist? What good is a medical education if there is no doctor? What good is a medical institution if there is not a specialist doctor coming out and helping people? So what good is a Bhagavatam, what good is spiritual science if there is no spiritual scientist meeting people on their platforms? Does that make sense? So I'll just quickly take 2 minutes and we'll finish now. I'll just quickly take 2 minutes and summarize. Is that okay? Yeah? We started explaining Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya philosophy, although the chapter says understanding material nature, it's not just limited to the chemicals and the biology and the trees and the rivers and the mountains and the ether and the fire and the spark and the smell and the earth and the sky and the water. It is actually a holistic understanding of the physical nature outside and our psychological nature. That is Sankhya. It's called parsimony in academic education, putting things into simplistic terms. Yeah? We started there. And I went through how when Prabhupada talks about Mayavadi philosophers, it's not just Shankaracharya, he's talking about any mentality that doesn't make distinctions. And I gave you a Western philosopher's. He's not actually a philosopher, but anyway, let's live with that. But I gave you an example of a Western philosopher where he didn't see the distinctions of the observer, the seer, the observation, and the object of observation. And I gave you an Eastern, the so-called SG, who doesn't make distinction between Anatma and God, because interestingly, I heard him say, you can YouTube, it's not like I'm blowing any smoke around here. He never read Gita, and he actually said that Krishna is not God. Apparently, Krishna in some little unknown conversation said to Arjuna that Karna could even kill Krishna. Interesting. So that's a mentality where you don't make distinctions between God and you and Ishvara, Jiva and? Very good. So then I move into, I said I don't want to get all philosophical on you and all theological on you, and I wanted to move into practical life. And I explained 3 aspects of practical life. The first aspect is where we have to deal with work, we have to deal with shopping, we have to deal with families. But over time, when you make service as when you see the value your service adding to yourself and this world, when you see a problem, you see the problem in its own light rather than letting your mind and emotion exaggerate it. And your service comes first, and then you see things as they are, and new avenues come, new power comes. Yeah? And then I talked about devotee relationships where we can park, maintain a healthy distance, don't need to prove each other right or wrong right now. Yeah? It's very important, because if we don't remain devotees in this ISKCON, how is ISKCON going to be a world consciousness movement at some stage? Yeah. And then finally, I shed light on how our relationship, the Ahankara, this is all about Ahankara. Okay, it's all about Ahankara. So when we're dealing with this world, we don't have to act like a self-righteous, on the way to the heaven kind of spiritualist. We have to allow the world to relate to us. And we have to relate to this world. We have to talk to them. We have to have discussions. Meet them at the discourse. Have you ever heard this? Meeting people at their discourse. Because it's a very quick tendency to become all self-righteous. So we have to be very careful not to get all self-righteous about ourselves. We have to see our faults. Ahankara is not going to die so quickly. It's a very long process. It doesn't just die because we made 10 temple visits in 12 months. Okay, it takes a long process. It takes working with our psychologists, understanding others, and working with this material nature, doing our service, seeing value in our service. Or talk about service. We have my buddy, service buddy here. So Madhupati Devidasi. So she's my book distribution partner. She's been for years, and we do service all the time. And when we see, isn't it right? When we see value that we are adding to this world, and when we see that service adding value to us, doesn't that help to see, when we have a problem in our life, doesn't it help to see the problem as what it is and not exaggerate it to the monstrous extent that we do? Does it help? Am I right? You are obviously 10 times more experienced than me in life. Am I lying or? Okay, I'll stop boring you with my dry philosophy. Anybody, any questions, any comments, any corrections, anything you thought, some of the, like the hermeneutics and the ontological surprise, where I said like one day the Atma pops out of your body and actually sees your body as it is, and Naiva Kinchit Karomiti, Gnanam Gnayam Parignata. I went all Bhagavad Gita on you. If you have any questions, comments, you want to correct, please feel free, and I'm happy. Wow, looks like I've done everything right. Yes, please.
If we apply, like let's say in a relationship and outside, how we see the things, and we put service at our home, but if we are going in a family, your spouse is there, you have to deal in small things, you are not able to put that always in your life. So just to take these things at the home also, if you are beautifying your kids and your wife, is there anything more to
See, this is a very, Mahatma Prabhu goes on this, and this is a very, very important question you asked, and it usually takes an hour. So if I'm going to give you a nutshell answer, please forgive me, because we're out of time and I don't want to come between you and your prasad. That is the greatest sin, to come between you and your prasad. The best way to deal in the situation, again, we have to go back to the same thing. When we are together in it helps when you're together in a service. And at some stage, you have to park an issue, and we have to see, still again, the service, the value, the service that's adding to us, and that's adding to the planet. When the family as a whole sees that, when the family as a whole starts to see, okay, we have a problem, rather than getting all emotional and accusing or going into an accusational mode, what happens after some times, you see the next service first. When you see your next service, it happens gradually, it doesn't happen overnight. When our partner and when we see our next service first, then it becomes easier, but it takes time. It's not overnight.
before that we need to have that dedication in the service, then only we can
Correct. Because when we don't have, and the reason we don't have dedication on the service is because we haven't yet seen the value that service is providing us and the transformation it's providing to the world. When we don't see that, then there's no dedication. So it's a gradual process. Then we don't accuse each other in the family. And the first thing that comes to our mind is, oh, my next service on Friday. Other person may not be able to see that. But gradually, we can hope that Krishna will bless us. Krishna will help us. To see, now we are having problem. Now maybe it's all getting emotional. But when you said the partner, did you? Yeah, you said that. When once you and your partner, the partner also eventually starts seeing, okay, we have to maybe, rather than getting all emotional now, how about eventually start seeing the value that service is putting in my life and this world, and eventually that becomes a common ground to park for each other. It happens. It may not be right now, but in our predecessor Acharya's lives, it has happened. It is possible. Is that helpful? Or usually these things go for a whole hour. So I just gave you a very nutshell. Please forgive me. We can talk later after the class. Yeah? Nutshell.
The only problem, like dedication should come is the first thing.
Yeah.
It will gradually come.
See, the dedication doesn't come because we don't take our initiations as usually sometimes. Okay. I hope this is getting recorded, but that's okay. I'll play this very carefully. The problem is sometimes we take initiation is the ticket to heaven, the ticket to the spiritual world. But actually, that's only just the beginning. When we see every day is an initiation, when we see every day we are getting initiated, when every day is an installation of spiritual life. When you start seeing that, after some time, I have strong hope. Krishna will shed some light. Give that dedication. I have strong hopes. Is that okay? Sorry, Prabhuji. I think you had a point to make.
Yeah, I was on the purport.
Yes, please.
Srila Prabhupada mentions in the very end of the purport that the constitutional position is liberation.
Yeah.
He also mentions how we came into this endeavor.
Into this?
Into this endeavor.
Of material, you mean? Okay. So, is that a comment or a question?
Well, the question concerns in between because he mentions that we are supposed to eliminate the false ego. The question would be, what does that mean to eliminate the ego?
Very good. So, when you say very astute question, you've done some work on this, haven't you? Because that's a very astute, technical, philosophical question. Very good. Very, very impressive. Because when you say false ego, what's the first thing that should come to our mind? When you say something false, I'll give you a hint. When you say something false, what's the first thing that should come to your mind? Something has to be true. Is that correct? Is that correct? When you say false ego, the first thing that has to come to mind is, then what is the true ego? Yeah? So the true ego is our relationship with Krishna in the spiritual world and other Atmas in the spiritual world. That's our true ego. But once we come into this material world, avrutam jnanam etena jnanina nityavairena kamarupena kaunteya dushpurena na lena cha. So when we come to this material world, our true ego, which is our bond with Krishna and other Atmas in the spiritual world, it has been covered with our current material body and the three gunas. So it's discovering our true ego. So discovering the false ego that has been covered by the three modes of material nature, discovering the false ego that has been covered by the current mind, which is eternally serving our bodies, and discovering it. Does that make sense? It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's discovering, because when you say false ego, what is the true ego? The true ego was your connection, your relationship with Krishna, Radharani and other souls. Yeah. So discovering your true nature is the elimination of false ego, and you get your true ego. Does that make sense? Very astute question. It clearly says you've done some work on this. I mean, in your life. And I'm very sorry about that I had to do so quickly about the question on the family, because it's usually almost an hour. But did that at least give you an idea? It did? Okay, let's end. And Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhu bhavacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. Haribol.